So I think, first of all, the question about how we're doing and how we're making progress is important, because we have to start with asking ourselves that and making sure we're measuring that progress. I think what's interesting is at yesterday's opening of the conference, David asked everyone, how do you think we're doing? And they were able to enter that in a poll. And we came back with probably about a C-. I think that's probably accurate, because everyone is at a different point in their journey of doing this work. But I also was actually appreciative of the honesty. I think sometimes we have a tendency to score ourselves higher than we actually are, but admitting that we have a lot of progress to make, I think, is the first step. I feel like for most organizations, you have to step back to understand what are you actually trying to accomplish, and start within your organization, the diversity, equity, inclusion in your organization, your policies, your practices, your programs, and then how that ultimately impacts the work. We work in the advertising industry. One of the toughest things about doing this work in this industry is navigating around a campaign mindset. And the truth of the matter is that everything is not going to have a great tagline or a great story, but that authenticity and that truth and transparency, as much as we want it in the work, it has to show up in what we're doing every day. If we simply focus on who are we actually talking to and who are we trying to reach, a lot of the things that have been tried and true in our industry, even the marketing funnel, it's about relationship, it's about engagement, it's about connection. And you can't have those authentic connections with our consumers if we're not also first having it with our talent in the organization and reflecting on who are we representing, how they're being represented, and who are they being represented by. And so the mix of those things absolutely shows up in how we're actually able to reach those consumers. And if we don't embed that from the very beginning of conversation in the ideation, it's never going to show up in the execution.
What about measurement? And there's been a lot of talk about measurement it works, but it may be skewed against diverse audiences. How does measurement, a more accurate, useful measurement world develop?
Given the work that we do, measurement and data, as important as they are, we can spin a story around it that might not be as authentically true as the objective of what we're trying to create. So I think it's first have that conversation around our intent versus our impact. I think when we talk about data and numbers and measurement in the work, it also plays out in terms of what we have to do in the workplace. Representation, for example. Representation matters, but it can't be our only measure of our accountability. How are we also looking beyond that initial measurement of what's represented to look at how it's actually being impacted and what those other subsets of the data can tell us so that we can actually be more effective?
What about CTV and the opportunities of television? We've been talking about this, but what are the opportunities for brand marketers to reach a more diverse audience using CTV?
I think it's the same. All right, all of these conversations are continuing evolving. At one point, people were saying that television was dead altogether, right? And so whether it evolves as CTV, however these additional iterations and evolutions happen, the focus and the strategy still becomes the same. You have to have an authentic conversation and focus on the narratives in order to reach the audience. There's no sort of looking at whatever a nuanced conversation might be if it's not authentic.